Why do housing prices keep rising while purchasing power stagnates? If increasing the housing supply is the solution, why not just build more? And how does inflation play into this complicated equation? Here, high-end design meets reality. To grasp today's housing crisis, we need to rewind to the post-World War II era. The economic boom saw massive housing projects rolled out across the world. Governments played a significant role, ensuring affordable homes through subsidized and housing policies. However, over the years, bureaucratic inefficiencies took root. One clear example is Spain, where excessive government intervention aimed at making housing affordable has often backfired. In 2019, Spain introduced rent control policies across major cities like Madrid and Barcelona. The result? Rental property listings dropped by over 40%, and rent prices in Barcelona actually increased by 10%. Government interference, instead of helping, led to fewer homes on the market and higher prices. This is just one symptom of a broader problem caused by what I call the Blob Team, a collection of public administration officials and large corporations. These entities work together, often under the guise of helping, but their actions are short-sighted and driven by short-term goals. They fail to grasp the market dynamics, favoring political popularity over sustainable solutions.
Risk and unnecessary bureaucracy.
The Blob Team thrives on unnecessary bureaucracy. Their endless layers of paperwork and approvals make real estate development a nightmare. Take the United States, for instance. In San Francisco, it takes an average of 2 and 4 years to approve housing developments. Developers must navigate zoning laws, environmental impact studies, and community consultations, which are all important but become counterproductive when overdone. In New York, the problem is similar. Stringent zoning laws and delays have contributed to a 40% drop in new housing development over the last decade. The Blob Team's flaw lies in their bureaucratic mindset. They equate more regulation with better results, failing to recognize that excessive red tape strangles supply, raises prices, and discourages investment.
Inflation, urgency, and purchasing power.
One of the major issues is inflation, which erodes purchasing power. When the cost of living rises, but wages remain stagnant, fewer people can afford homes. In the US, inflation rose more than 5% in 2021 alone, outpacing wage growth. At the same time, the cost of construction materials skyrocketed by 30% due to supply chain disruptions during the pandemic. These rising costs mean developers need to charge more for housing just to cover expenses, further limiting affordability. And while R&D can offer solutions such as prefabricated construction, the Blob Team's failure to embrace new technologies keeps housing prices high. Prefabricated methods can reduce costs by 15 to 20% and speed up construction times by 50%. But regulatory barriers slow their adoption. Meanwhile, developers are hesitant to invest in R&D without certainty that these technologies will be supported or permitted.
Public intervention in the market.
The Blob Team's interventions usually have unintended consequences. Controlling rental prices, for instance, may sound like a good idea, but in practice it reduces the incentive for landlords to maintain or invest in their properties. In Berlin, a 2020 rent cap led to a 30% reduction in available rental properties within months of its introduction. The policy was later struck down as unconstitutional, but the damage had been done. Rent prices shot up by 20% after the cap was lifted, as landlords tried to recoup their losses. Despite the recent correction in Germany's real estate market, with prices falling in 2022 and 2023, this decline was largely due to the lack of maintenance and investment in older buildings. Many properties now require costly renovations to meet modern standards, particularly in energy efficiency. And these expenses continue to rise each year as inflation creeps into the economy. Rather than a healthy market correction, this serves as a stark reminder. When buildings are no longer profitable, they can quickly deteriorate, turning into financial burdens or even ruins. What the Blob Team doesn't understand is that markets are dynamic. Interventions like this create short-term wins for politicians, but long-term damage for the housing supply and for society.
Legal security and professional responsibility.
The housing market craves stability. Investors and developers need consistent laws and an efficient legal system to feel secure in their investments. Yet, the Blob Team often introduces sudden regulatory changes that threw the market into chaos. In Argentina, a 2021 law aimed at capping rent hikes resulted in landlords pulling out of rental market entirely. Vacancy rates surged by 15% and rental prices jumped as fewer properties were available. The Blob Team's tendency to tweak laws for political gains creates instability, leading to fewer homes and higher costs. Moreover, instead of trusting qualified professionals to oversee projects, public servants, who often lack market knowledge, are tasked with decision-making. Streamlining regulation and letting private experts do their jobs would remove layers of inefficiency and good costs.
Interest rates.
Interest rates are another level that can either help or hurt the housing market, depending on how they are handled. The Blob Team's manipulation of interest rates to stimulate economic growth can backfire. For example, when the European Central Bank cut rates to historic lows in the 2010s, housing prices in major cities like Berlin and Paris skyrocketed. Cheap money fueled speculation, driving prices up by a 40 and 60% within a decade. On the flip side, when interest rates rise, as we've seen in 2023, borrowing becomes more expensive, slowing down housing construction and squeezing home buyers out of the market. The Blob Team often fails to recognize the delicate balance needed when adjusting rates, further destabilizing the market.
Defining the Blob Team.
So I see you asking yourself, who exactly is the Blob Team? Picture a group of well-meaning but out-of-touch public official and corporate players. They operate with short-term political objectives, creating policies that look good in headlines but wreak havoc on the housing market. They misunderstand market dynamics because they view housing as a social problem to be regulated, rather than a dynamic marketplace that requires balance and flexibility. Their flaws are numerous. Short-term focus. Policies are designed to win votes or meet quarterly goals without considering long-term consequences. Bureaucratic mindset. They believe more rules equal better outcomes, not realizing that overregulation kills efficiency. Failure to innovate. They resist adopting new technologies or methods, holding back progress, and risk aversion. The Blob Team hesitates to take bold steps, preferring the safety of the status quo.
No need for solutions if we eliminate the problem.
So, why do housing prices keep rising while purchasing power stagnates? Rising inflation, excessive bureaucracy, and stagnant wages all play a role. The Blob Team's interventions often exacerbate the problem by reducing supply and increasing costs. If all we need is to release more housing supply into the market, why simply not build more? The Blob Team's heavy-handed regulations make it difficult. Red tape, zoning laws, and environmental reviews all slow down the construction process, even when demand for housing is sky-high. How does inflation impact the real estate market? Inflation reduces purchasing power, while at the same time driving up construction costs. Materials, labor, and land all become more expensive, and this gets passed on to homebuyers and renters. If we want to solve the housing crisis, we need to rethink how we regulate the market. The Blob Team's bureaucratic approach has clearly failed. We should focus on reducing unnecessary regulations, embracing innovation through R&D, and ensuring legal stability for investors and developers, leading to faster approvals and increased housing supply. What examples have you seen of bureaucratic inefficiencies in your region? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's spark a discussion about real solutions. Thanks for watching. See the big picture and keep thinking forward. Still there? Take a look at this.